Part 15. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 143. Nowadays, there is a war and chaos outside, and the price of food is sky high. You are brought here by acquaintances. As long as you can afford the money, I am willing to sell you some. The owner of the small restaurant looked at Sukingyu and his group and saw that they looked harmless, so he spoke. Sukingyu felt happy and hurriedly thanked the other party. Thank you very much. It doesn't matter what we adults eat, but we have many children at home, all only a few years old. I want to buy some fine grains for the children, and some brown rice and thick noodles. As he spoke, he handed the shopkeeper a bag filled with scattered silver. The man took it and opened it to see that there were about 10 taels of silver. Seeing that he had accepted it, Sukingyu said again, "You can use the money to pack it for us. We want half fine grain and half coarse grain." Wait, the man glanced at them, ducked in, and closed the door. The cloth shop owner didn't follow him in this time. He asked Sukingyu some information. Knowing that they were General Wang's men who captured Renzo, they were still a little scared. I also heard that they were just family members who accompanied the army, and they were just ordinary people who joined in because they were desperate. After hearing this, the boss felt sorry for them. I heard that there were many women and children like them who were with the army outside the city, and I thought about the acumen of businessmen. After a while, the owner of the small restaurant opened the door and let a nephew-like person out. The two of them came out holding a few small bags. Put it on the ground and open it for Sukingyu and others to see. This bag is made of fine grains, and the other 2 bags contain 1 bag of brown rice and 1 bag of black flour. Don't think I gave you too little. Go out and take a look. Where can you buy grain now? Even if there are grain merchants. How many people can transport the grain to the city safely? It was either lost or robbed on the way. You can still buy these in 10 liang now, but it may not be possible in the future. Sukingyu also knew the current situation. She had just spent several times more money on cloth and shoes than before. Now when buying grain, the price had risen so much. She had expected it, so she didn't say anything more. Just thank him. He opened it slightly and looked at the ground. He saw that there was a small bag of white flour in the fine grain bag and glanced at the man. The man then said, "I just heard you say that your family has many and small children, so I packed 2 kilograms of white flour for you. Don't tell anyone about it when you go back. If anyone comes to buy it, I won't recognize it. My family, it's not enough to eat, and I don't know where to buy it after I finish eating." Although Sukingyu knew that he was not at a loss, he was kind enough to give them 2 kilograms of white flour. "Don't worry, shopkeeper, we are all strict-mouthed people. We will not cause you any trouble." After saying that, he asked Dahu and Daejiang to carry the grain on their backs and turned around and left with everyone. The cloth shop owner looked at their backs and remembered what Sukingyu and others had just said, and said to the small restaurant owner, "I heard they said that the man who captured the city had many family members accompanying the army. What about you? The restaurant is closed. Maybe it's doing well." The boss was a little moved after hearing this. There are quite a few people in this team. But now grain merchants no longer transport grain to the city, and several grain shops in the city are closed. Grain cannot be bought. If the grain stored at home is sold out, what will his family eat? Even if I make a lot of money, I still have no place to buy food now. But when I think about leaving the business alone, I feel itchy. After thinking for a while, he said, "I'll go to the street with you and take a look." The cloth shop owner then said, "Let's go and take a look together. My cloth shop originally wanted to close down and prepare to leave the city for a while. But after hearing what they said, I plan to open it for a few more days to take a look. You don't know what happened just now. They all bought up all the shoe soles I had accumulated. I heard that there are 10,000 people outside the city. Everything is expensive now, so I can make a lot just by selling shoe soles. Sukingyu didn't know that the two of them had said such words after they left. Several people wrapped the grain in old cloth and put it at the bottom of the backpack. On top of the basket were shoe soles. They used the old cloth from the soles to cover the grain and hide it from others. A few people walked around the city with backpacks on their backs, trying to buy something for the children. After searching around, they couldn't find anything, and the bookstore wasn't open, so they had to go back to the camp outside the city. As soon as the few people returned to the camp, many people came up to watch them, asking questions and looking through their backpacks. Many people asked them about the situation and what they bought in the city. Sukingyu and others took the shoe soles placed on the backpacks and showed them to everyone. This journey is a waste of shoes, so we went to the city and bought a few pairs each. We also bought some old cloth to prepare a few more pairs of thick-soled shoes. You or I don't know, one pair of soles now costs as much as 4 or 5 pairs. Even old rags are sold for the same price as silk. We still want to buy a suit of clothes for each of us, but we don't have enough money and can't even buy burlap. These words made many people retreat. Is the city busy? Hey, it's so lively. All the officials in the city have run away, all the people with connections have run away, and not many businesses are open. We see a few children who are suffering along the way, so we want to buy 2 pieces of candy for the children. It's sweet, but I searched all over the city and couldn't find any for sale. The people who came back after Sukingyu also confirmed what the Su family said, and everyone no longer had any expectations for entering the city. Sukingyu and others covered up and returned to their own territory. When Su's mother and aunt heard that such a small amount of grain, 20 or 30 kilograms, cost 10 taels of silver, and half of it was coarse grains, they were stunned. Are you going to eat gold? This food is so expensive, can ordinary people afford it? What can we do? This fine grain is only about 10 pounds, and it won't last long. Is this grain so expensive? When Lu Xiaobao saw Suqing'an coming back, he threw himself into her arms and stuck to her. At this time, Suqing'an held Lu Xiaobao in her arms, touched his little head, and said to Su's mother and others, "Wait a few days and see, the large troops will not withdraw for a while. The merchants in the city will open their doors one after another when they see that the situation is stable." Sudahu and Dejong walked around the city and saw that such a large city of Renzhou was not as prosperous as their small Fengting town. Looking at the current life and thinking about the past life, they also sighed. The price of grain is so expensive now, it should be because the road is unsafe and difficult to transport. Now, if it is not a large caravan with its own guard team, most of the merchants walking on the road will be robbed. If the grain cannot be transported in, the price of grain will be high, Sudahu said. In the past, he helped Suqing'an to collect and transport goods in the countryside and villages, and he had a lot of experience in transportation. A few days passed like this, and there was no sign of the team moving out of camp. Suqing'an originally thought that Huangsu would send troops to garrison Renzhou after confiscating Renzhou's supplies and recruiting able-bodied men, and then he would lead the team to continue southward. But a few days passed, and not only did Huangsu not appear in the camp, but even his close subordinates were nowhere to be seen. She also heard people say that some businesses in the city had opened for business, and some taverns had also opened, and she often saw Huangsu's men drinking in the taverns. Then more and more soldiers went to the city to drink in the taverns. She also heard that the brothels in the city had also opened for business, and the casinos had also quietly opened, and the business was still very good. Suqing'an's heart skipped a beat after hearing these news. Huangsu was satisfied with having gained a city. Was he going to settle for pleasure? Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 144. Sukingyu felt very uneasy. Read. I wandered around the campground to see what the situation was like now. If no one has a sense of worry, then she will make some other plans. After walking for a while, I met Huang Shenzi. Huang Shenzi saw her wandering around alone, without her son. Her face looked heavy and her brows were furrowed. After thinking about it, she walked towards her. "What's wrong?" Su Qingyu was thinking deeply while walking. When she heard the sound, she turned around to look. Seeing that it was Huang Shenzi, she asked him directly, "Are you planning to stay in Renzhou?" Huang Shenzi was stunned and shook his head. "I don't know. But I want to go south." "Do you want to go south?" Su Qingyu gave him a determined look and said, "Can you decide?" Huang Shenzi didn't look at her, just looked ahead. "No." Su Qingyu fell silent. Seeing that she was silent, Huang Shenzi thought for a while and comforted her, "Don't worry, I will inform you if anything happens." Su Qingyu didn't say anything, she just glanced at his face, nodded to him, and turned back to her tent. Then she was worried for a few more days, and sure enough, something happened. In the early morning of this day, Huang Shenzi hurriedly came to inform her that she should pack her luggage immediately and that the team would break camp immediately. Upon hearing this, Su Qingyu hurriedly asked the Su family to dismantle the tent and pack their luggage. The Su family was in a hurry. Before they could finish, the sentry blew the whistle, asking the men to prepare to fight, while the women and children evacuated south first. What caused this disaster can only be said to be Huang Su's arrogant operation and the high profile of the people under him. He captured Renzhou without spending a single soldier, confiscated supplies, recruited soldiers, and obtained the resources of a city. Many people saw it and were extremely jealous. Wouldn't it be better to keep a low profile and make secret jabs to strengthen the team? But Huang Su was lucky. As soon as he entered the city, he was blinded by the splendor of the governor's mansion. The women and children at home ate dirt and were blown away by the dust. They didn't want to leave after entering the mansion. And Huang Su also immerse yourself in the gentle land every day. If you want to be stationed in Renzhou city, then you can station yourself there, but at least make progress, engage in construction, develop the local economy and so on. As for the soldiers, they should be trained every day to train their muscles, practice their military posture, and train their combat capabilities. Then they can send troops to defend the city and maintain order, right? But nothing. Just stare at the small restaurants and pubs in the city and ask them when they will open. The tavern was open, the tavern was overcrowded, then the flower shop was opened, and the casino was open all night. When had a group of poor soldiers ever seen such a scene? The most corrosive things about dogs and horses are the most corrosive. However, you can't be too demanding. It is indeed difficult for people who have been wielding swords and guns since ancient times to engage in politics and economics. And Huang Su's men were not strong either. No, I don't know if they are all being targeted. The green forest heroes around Renzhou can't stand it. Why can you, a poor soldier guarding the border, capture a city? And I'm still eating dirt? So a group of heroes gathered together to discuss, planning to join forces to capture Renzhou first, and then divide the spoils among themselves. For a time, many heroes and heroes in Jiangxi gathered in Renzhou. The movement was so big that even Jiangxi observer Yang Bai was alarmed. Speaking of Yang Bai, the Jiangxi observation envoy, he didn't have much ambition. He just planned to stay in the southwest and live the life of his wife and children. In the hinterland of the Central Plains, the water is deep, the war is raging, and it is far away from Jiangxi. No matter how many troops and generals are mobilized, Jiangxi cannot be mobilized. Yang Bijhan was watching a play in his backyard with his concubine in his arms. Dogs biting dogs and so on, this troop dispatching, the sealing of military envoys, observation envoys, strategic envoys, etc. had nothing to do with him. It's just that, as the governor of Renzhou, aren't you too incompetent? I put a good Renzhou in your hands, and you threw down the military seal and ran away? You dare to come to me? Renzhou City, a good city, was surrendered. The observation made Master Yang Bai so angry that his chest was tight and breathless, but it was not easy to rush away from the governor's family. After all, they were his own people. Renzhou is also his own territory. If Huang Su is more capable than the original governor, it's not that he can't give Renzhou to him. Anyway, it's meat in his hands. As for Huang Su, I haven't heard of any achievements. What does this man want to do by taking Renzhou? If they are good, Yang Bai plans to recruit people under his section. It doesn't matter if the governor is replaced by someone else. They are all members of his own family anyway. But why are all the heroes rushing to Renzhou? Want to divide Renzhou? Do you think I, the Jiangxi observer, am dead? I'm not dead yet. Fly into a rage. Yang Bai waited and watched for a few days, and saw that Huang Su still didn't come to surrender to him, nor did he send anyone to show his courtesy. He also made a show of manipulation in Renzhou City, and attracted a lot of people who wanted to share his flesh. How can I bear this? Lord Yang Bai, the Jiangxi observation envoy, immediately gathered all the soldiers and horses in the territory and headed for Renzhou. Yang Bai didn't pay attention to the so-called heroes surrounding Renzhou, and only concentrated on dealing with Huang Su. As for Huang Su, there was no shortage of people who could recruit a team of 10,000 people. Immediately the secret report was received, and the observer brought someone to deal with him. Huang Su immediately sent people to the camp outside the city to spread the news, asking the soldiers to prepare for battle. Then, several groups of people were sent back and reported that the observation envoy personally led a large army, which numbered more than 50,000 people. They are still regular soldiers, those who eat food and pay, and those who receive pay and silver. Upon hearing this, Huang Su was immediately discouraged. He has 10,000 troops, and a large part of them are ordinary people who have no fighting ability and are enlisted as soldiers, and a large part of them are family members who accompany the army. How to fight this? No matter how passionate he was in his heart and wanted to fight to the death with Yang Bai, he was not that dizzy yet and planned to use an egg against a stone. So I immediately arranged for my family to stay away from Renzhou overnight. By the time Huang Shenzi learned the news and went to notify Su Qingyu, Huang Su had already fled south with his family and close subordinates. As for the camp outside the city, no matter how worried they were, Su Qingyu and others could only watch as Su's father, uncle, Zhang Dehuo, and 4 others gathered into the forward team. Everyone packed their luggage quickly with their hearts in mind, put the children on the ox cart, drove their own cattle, and evacuated with the large army. Huang Shenzi also knew that Huang Su had left, so he asked him to stay and turn the soldiers outside the city into rear troops to resist the approaching Yang Bai team. The front army consisted of Huang Su and others, the middle army consisted of women and children accompanying the army, and the rear army was led by Huang Su, preparing to fight against Yang Bai's team. Huang Shenzi also knew that the chance of victory was not good. While organizing people to retreat, he led his troops to evacuate south, and continuously sent people to explore Yang Bai's marching route. When Su Qingyu was first caught in the team by Huang Shenzi, he asked about their marching route. I learned that their team had joined the larger force in Fuzhou and was going to pass through Nanjing and Yushan, pass through Jiangxi, and enter Fujian. Then it entered Fujian, passed through Chongren, Zhaohe, and finally arrived at Nanping. Now being chased by Yang Bai's team, Nanjing cannot go to Nanjing. The large forces are preparing to evacuate to the mountainous areas in central Jiangxi, intending to use the mountains to resist a little and reduce casualties. From behind, Yang Bai rushed forward with his elite soldiers and generals. The atmosphere was very tense. Su Qingyu whipped the old cow repeatedly, just to make it go faster and faster. Yang Bai, on the other hand, pursued them all the way and captured several teams who wanted to take advantage of the chaos. This also bought Huang Shenzi some time to evacuate. But everyone knew in their hearts that as long as they faced Yang Bai's team, A big defeat was inevitable. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 145. The relationship that comes from being bound by interests is not very strong. Read. Not to mention the southward escape, there were several teams that later joined the team. Seeing Huang Su's arrogant behavior, and because of his selfish and shameless behavior of leaving the team and fleeing first, they left the team. Just for the sake of food and their own safety, the people who threw themselves in for support all fled one after another. Huang Shenzi of the rear army was concentrating on fighting, while Huang Su and those close to him in the front army were just trying to escape. Although several leaders of the central army were protecting the large army as they retreated south, they were not united. For those who left the team, several leaders had no intention of chasing them back. The common people should leave the team and let them go their own way. They are all a group of poor people, and they waste food even if they can't get it back. Thinking that one or two people have a small target and can easily escape, in fact, they may be more likely to be chased. The generals in the army had no intention of taking care of those who left the team, and just led the large troops to flee in panic. The rear army led by Huang Shenzi fought a battle with Yang Bai's vanguard, resulting in numerous casualties. He was also unwilling to fighting and retreating at the same time. On the Chinese side, Su Qingyu and the Su family beat Lao Niu repeatedly, eager to get on their way. Because there was an ox cart, they were in a relatively advanced position among the Chinese troops. It's just that she doesn't dare to relax at all. As long as the other party catches up, this group of unarmed people can't resist it for even half an hour. Su Qingyu handed the bullwhip to Su Qingliu. She turned around and sat on the cart, and said with a serious face, "If the enemy comes after you later, you won't need your luggage. Just take care of yourself. Mother, you take Qingyang Qingxin with you, my sister takes Yaya, my aunt, and Hongxiu take Jinhai, I take Xiaobao, and Kixia follows me. You can throw away everything, but not the clothes you are wearing. If we get separated, we will go back to Renzhou City and wait for news. There is a cloth shop on South Street where we bought cloth and shoes last time, so I left a message there." When Su's mother heard this, she was extremely frightened. "Qing, why are we getting separated? You said that, and my mother is scared." Several children were so frightened that they hid in the arms of adults. "Don't be afraid. Listen to your sister. If you get separated, go back to Renzhou City and wait there. The adults will find you. Do you hear me?" Su Qingyu pulled her two younger brothers and sisters, coldly and carefully. "Confess. I heard you. We must stay with our dear mother. If we get separated, we will go to the cloth shop on Renzhouqinan Street and wait for the adults to find her." The twins responded in unison. Although the twins were scared, fortunately they followed Su Qingyu and saw some things in the world in Fengting Town. They also read books and were better than ordinary children. Let them follow Mother Su, and maybe they can become Mother Su's support. While my aunt is a cheerful person, Hongxiu is a bit reserved and timid. If my aunt is asked to take Hongxiu and Jinhai with me, my uncle will be able to handle it. Su Qingliu just needs to take good care of Yaya. If she takes Xiaobao and Kixia with her, she can handle just two people. My aunt took Su's mother's hand, which was trembling, patted it, and comforted her. "Don't be afraid, Qing Lao is just preparing for the worst. Our family will still go together when the time comes. If someone accidentally, if we are separated, we adults will follow what Qing Lao said and take care of the little ones. Even if we are separated, we will find everyone if we are lucky. Yeah, I'm not afraid, not afraid. We have to take care of several children, Yaya, don't be afraid." After saying this, Mother Su hugged Yaya tightly, and then held her aunt's hand, and the two comforted each other. With Hungzio and Aunt Kixia's hands were also squeezed together tightly. The two of them looked back frequently and saw that the team behind them was getting more and more chaotic. Women, children, and the elderly were all running forward desperately. From time to time, someone fell to the ground, and the people behind them couldn't stop and stepped on them. There were more people behind them. Many people stepped on it. The two of them were horrified and their eyes were filled with blood. "Don't look," Sukingyu said to them calmly. Upon hearing this, the two people turned around quickly, their heads hanging down, their hands trembling, and even their crossed legs began to tremble. It wasn't until sunset and it was dark that the messenger from the rear army came to report that Yang Bai's army had set up camp in front, and everyone slowed down. But my heart was still high, and I didn't dare to relax at all. I walked forward for another 20 miles before stopping. At this time, everyone had reached their limit. They fell to the ground, gasping for air, and couldn't even move a finger. And the old cow of the Su family was foaming at the mouth and couldn't move at all. Even when Su's mother found water to feed it, it couldn't drink it, which made Su's mother and aunt feel heartbroken. In the middle of the night, Su's father, Sudahua, and others found the resting place of the Su family in the dark. When everyone saw that they were all injured to varying degrees, they held their heads and cried again. His father, "How about we escape too?" Su's mother said while helping Su's father bandage. Su's father sighed, "No matter where you can run away now, there are rebels everywhere, and you may not be able to survive if you escape." Su's mother was frightened that day and rode a bullock cart for another day. When she saw Su's father who had been slashed in the arm, she collapsed a little and cried, "His father, you said if we didn't escape in the first place, wouldn't it be?" Father Su shook his head, "No, if we didn't leave Fengting town, maybe I would be dead now. If you are at home, life will not be much better. Now that the war has spread to the south, our Guangning mansion will only become more chaotic." My uncle also nodded, "Yes, if we had not left Fengting town, we would have been taken to the barracks after the Chinese New Year. It is not certain whether we are still alive now. The people in the south are suffering so hard, let alone us. There. Dahua, you were seriously injured today because you were protecting me and your uncle. If you stay in Fengting town, you can survive alone." Sudahua glanced at Sukingyu, who was bandaging him, and said calmly, "It's meaningless for me to live alone. Although I won't be slapped if I stay in Fengting town, I might be arrested by some general. Now like this." Sukingyu raised her head and glanced at him. When she saw his eyes, she lowered her head again and focused on her hands, tying him up. Fortunately, they bought some medicinal materials last time, and Huang Shenzi also gave some, otherwise the wound could drag people to death if not treated. The team only rested for an hour before they were called out again and were on their way. Although there is no such thing as starting a fight in the middle of the night, no matter how hard everyone competes for territory and heads, they will not be so unethical as to start a fight in the middle of the night. But the opponent had horses, cavalry, and well-equipped equipment. This motley crew couldn't compete with them in numbers, equipment, or force, so they had no choice but to go ahead. In the middle of the night was dark and there was no light from the stars and the moon. Everyone was on their way with torches. Dragging my children and carrying my daughter, I was carrying them all, and it was a staggering walk at night. Fortunately, no one complained. No matter how difficult it was better than dying. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 146. By morning, we were finally far away from Yang Bai's army. The team stopped to rest again, and the former army sent a quartermaster to check the supplies. Shake out all the luggage from the hands of the family members accompanying the army, and confiscate all food, supplies, and money. The solace in the Su family's package were roughly snatched away by the soldiers. The aunt wanted to go up and grab it, but was held back by Sukingyu and others. Some people in the team sobbed softly, and some cursed softly, but to no avail. The soldiers were very rude, and the few taels of silver Sukingyu had put in her backpack were confiscated. Fortunately, she used it to deceive others. Looking at the soldiers walking away with supplies on their backs, Sukingyu's eyes were heavy. It must be because of this wave of escape, a lot of food, wages, and supplies were lost on the road. It must be that the team is short of food and supplies. Sure enough, by lunchtime, except for the men, there was still half a bowl of cereal porridge, and the women and children only made up for the bottom. How can I be full? But there was no way, the gang leader even scraped the bottom of the pot clean. At night, the women and children even had no more food at the bottom of the bowl. The team suddenly started shouting. The sky is big and the earth is big, and food is the most important thing for the people. If you can't even eat, what else can you do? The crowd was furious and gathered around the gang leader. The leader was also helpless. He spread his hands and held up the pots for everyone to see. He said that the quartermaster only allocated so much, and he couldn't make more for everyone. Why not let everyone eat if they could have enough? He didn't care. Hide, how much can you hide? Everyone didn't believe it, so they all rushed towards the military supplies office. But without even meeting the quartermaster, he was stopped by soldiers armed with swords and guns, telling them that the army was out of food. When everyone heard this, they were dumbfounded. Everyone has been starving since noon and has been following the team on the road without stopping. They just want to have a full meal in the evening and just keep moving forward. It's hard to wait until night, but you told me that the army is out of food. Sukingyu was okay. When she couldn't stand it anymore, she stuffed some food into her mouth. What is taken from the system cannot be seen by others. But her family hasn't eaten yet. She was the only one who had enough to eat on this journey, so she was the one driving the car and protecting everyone. She thought that there might be something to eat in the evening, but she didn't expect that she wouldn't even have the little food at the bottom of the bowl at night. The four of them, Su's father, uncle, De Jong and De Hua, were given half a bowl of grain porridge. When they returned to their resting place after eating, they heard that the women and children had not eaten dinner and that the army had no food to eat. They all wanted to vomit the porridge they had just eaten. Come out. What to do? The adults are okay, but the children can't stand being hungry. Su's father and others looked at their children with pain and discomfort in their hearts. I felt that the half bowl of porridge I just ate was a sin. Seeing the children getting thinner and thinner makes me feel uncomfortable. Everyone was silent. Lu Xiaobao suddenly howled, raised his little face and shouted to Sukingyu, hungry. Sukingyu almost burst into tears. A few days ago, this child was able to jump out one word after another, but no one was in the mood to tease him and he didn't speak for a while. Now he howled and said he was hungry. Sukingju's tears hadn't even rolled out yet. Su's father, Su's mother and others had already shed tears. God, there is no way for anyone to survive. Grandma's dear grandson, what should I do? Su's mother hugged Lu Xiaobao and howled along with him. Lu Xiaobao's howl seemed to open a valve, and the cry of adults and children immediately rang out in the team. It got louder and louder, clear and shrill in the dark night, startling many birds resting in the forest at night. Sukingyu looked at the family members who were hugging each other and crying together. She raised her head and blinked away the tears. Suddenly he walked towards the cart, pulled out a long knife from the crack, and walked towards the old cow at home. Sudahua followed her with his eyes. Seeing her movements, he immediately followed her, grabbed her long knife, and looked at her steadily. I'll do it. The two looked at each other and walked towards the old cow lying on the ground resting. Su's father and others also noticed their movements and screamed, Qing Lao. What are you going to do? You can't kill him. If you kill Lao Niu, what will happen to the children? They won't be able to walk, Mother Su rushed forward in a hurry. My uncle and others who caught up were also extremely anxious. Su Qingyu knelt down and stroked the old cow's body. The old cow's body rose and fell with its breathing, and its tentacles were warm, making it very comfortable to touch. I followed them all the way, working hard without complaint, carrying their adults, children, and luggage, without rest every day, without even losing my temper. Because of Su Qingyu's touch, Lao Niu turned to look at her. The two big eyes were as clean as water, and they were as bright as a deep spring. Su Qingyu looked at it and saw tears streaming from its eyes. Su Qingyu was shocked, her hands stopped, and she immediately fell on the old cow and cried. Qingyang Qingxing and other children also threw themselves on the cow and cried. Lu Xiaobao also held the bull's head and howled uncontrollably. When the Su family gathered around the cow, no one could help but shed tears. Su's father, Su's mother, uncle, and aunt loved this old cow the most. If a farmer has a cow at home, he is as happy as anything. He regards the cow as his life follower and is reluctant to bear with it. Seeing it being affected makes my heart ache. If I could give it some strength, I would never put any more pressure on it. At this time, Su's mother cried and begged Su Qingyu, Qingyu, maybe after tomorrow, there will be food in the army. We can endure it. We will not die of hunger even if we don't eat for a day. Sister, we are not hungry, we don't eat cows, we won't eat it. Qingxing and Qingyang cried and rushed over to beg, but they all said they were not hungry. Xiao Jinhai also pulled the cow's tail and held it in his arms, saying that he was not hungry and did not want to eat the cow. Su Qingnao couldn't bear to leave Lao Niu. She just saw Lao Niu crying and felt like a sinner. She couldn't do it either. But if she doesn't take action, others will. If there is no food in the army, it will be food in other people's mouths. They are all staring at it. Let me do it. Su Qingyu turned around after hearing the voice and saw Huang Shenzi standing behind them with an indifferent expression. Let me do it. Seeing him saying something else, Su Qingyu hurriedly stood up, took the long knife from Su Dehu's hand, and handed it to him. She turned around and looked at the old cow again, and saw that it was also looking at her. Su Qingyu felt a pain in her heart and walked away quickly. When the Su family saw Huang Shenzi approaching with a knife, they couldn't bear to look at it. They took a few children and ran away, everyone crying as they walked. Su Qingyu walked out for a long time, until she could no longer hear the sound from the old cow, then she leaned against a tree trunk, let her body slide down, knelt on the ground and cried. If Lao Niu died, she didn't know what would happen to her. The Su family, Su's father and mother, the twins, Lu Xiaobao, I don't know what will happen to them, and what will happen to them in the future. She didn't know why she was here, why she couldn't even eat. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 147. Qing Lao, don't cry. If the old cow has a spirit in the sky and knows that it is because of it that we can survive, it will be very happy, don't cry. Su Dehu's stupid comfort did not make Su Qingyu feel any less guilty. Su's mother and others came over to cry with her. Until Huang Shenzi came and asked them to come over. Su Qingyu didn't go there, so she didn't dare to look. Su Dehu accompanied her. It wasn't until Huang Shenzi came over that Su Dehu glanced at him, then got up and walked towards the Su family. Half of it was taken away by military supplies, half of it was distributed to the people, and half of it was left to you. Yes, Su Qingyu responded in a low voice, shedding tears again. You know, I have been killing pigs for so many years, and my hands have never shaken. They are all killed with one knife, fast and accurate. But just now my hands were shaking, its big eyes looked straight at me, and my hands were like shake twice. Huang Shenzi raised the hand that was holding the knife and looked back and forth in the light of the fire in the distance. In addition to being stained with pig blood, these hands are now stained with cow blood, and they will be stained with more human blood in the future. Are these what he wants? In the evening, Sukingyu didn't go to see the cows. She didn't eat the beef, and neither did Xiaobao. Lu Xiaobao ran over and hugged her lazily, refusing to get off her body no matter how hard he tried, calling her mother. I don't know what I want to express, so I just call her mother. Sukingyu hugged him to avoid people and fed him some food. She also asked him to put her hands on her mouth and make a shhh sound, keeping the agreement between mother and son. Ansu and others processed the beef overnight, made it into dried meat, wrapped it, and sewed it into clothes overnight, then wrapped the meat strips and bacon and put them in the backpack. Everyone had a feast all night long, and if they didn't eat, they didn't know whose mouth it would end up in. The next day, the cattle were gone and only the cart was left. Sukingneo, Sukingliu, and others pulled the crossbars of the cart shafts on both sides, put the ropes on their backs, and pulled the children on the cart away. Mother Su and her aunt would occasionally pull the cart, and when Sukingyu was not pulling the cart, she would go to the back and help push the cart. In this way, the children at home can save some leg effort. Lu Xiaobao was not heavy, but Sukingyu felt that it was quite difficult to carry him all the way. The rear army led by Huang Shenzi fought while covering, while the front army and the middle army continued to run away. On the third day, the army had finished eating all the beef, and there was not much food for the soldiers. The team moved slower and slower, and Yang Bai led his army to catch up again. Huang Su was anxious in his heart. Seeing that the team greatly delayed his escape time and greatly consumed his food, he was already dissatisfied with the women and children accompanying the army. Huang Su's close subordinates secretly gave him advice and asked him to order the killing of women and children who could not walk and soldiers who were incapable of fighting in order to save some food. Huang Su was still hesitating. But there were frequent killing cries from behind, so he finally gave an order to his subordinates, ordering them to strangle the women and children, follow them in light vehicles and flee south as quickly as possible. At this time, the common people accompanying the army were already empty in their stomachs, and they were running forward with their last bit of perseverance, just to survive. They just want to live, and would rather go hungry and follow the team they join, trusting them completely. But he didn't expect that his own soldiers were already ready to raise their swords and guns at them, who were unarmed. For a moment, the people fell down before they had time to react. Because Sukingyu had no more oxen, she could not move as fast as the previous days while pulling the cart with her children, and was not in front of the Chinese army. When the screams came from the front, I saw many people running back desperately, and some soldiers chasing after them. I didn't react at first, thinking that there were also pursuers in the front. When she took a closer look, she saw where the pursuers were. It was clearly the Huang family army who wanted to strangle these burdensome people. Come down, come down, come down. Sukingyu's liver and gallbladder were split apart. She shouted loudly and quickly picked up Lu Xiaobao and hugged her in her arms. Quick, run to the woods, run to the mountains. Qingyang Qingxing, follow mom. Jinhai, follow your grandma and your aunt. Sister, take care of Yaya. Kixia, follow me quickly. Sukingyu screamed repeatedly, took the lead and rushed into the forest with Xiaobao in her arms. He didn't even want the cart and ran away. Many people were chopped to the ground before they could react, while some people who reacted quickly followed the Su family into the woods. The entire team suddenly fell into chaos. There were screams in front of her, and there were sounds of arrows, halberds, swords, and guns clashing behind her. Sukingyu's heart was pounding, and she just wished she had 2 more legs. Xiaobao, hold your mother tight. Mother. Don't be afraid, hold your mother tight. Sukingyu held Lu Xiaobao's butt with one hand, pushed aside the bushes in the forest with the other, and rushed forward with her head buried in the ground. While running, he shouted to both sides, Mom, Aunt, run quickly, run quickly. Sister, sister. Qing Yang Qing Xing, run. Qing Lao, run quickly. There were tall trees and dense grass in the forest. Su Qingyu didn't care about what was under her feet. She ran, she just wanted to run forward. Faster, faster. I don't know how long I ran, but I just felt like I was out of breath. I stepped on the wrong foot and fell down. Huang Shenzi led his rear army to resist the offensive of Yang Bai's army, and then fled forward in a hurry. I don't know if Yang Bai thought they were out of control or wanted to play cat chasing mouse, so he stopped chasing. When Huang Shenzi led his men to run forward, they saw the corpses of common people all along the way, but none of the former soldiers were there. The ground was covered with rags, and blood stained the ground that was still wet. Huang Shenzi's eyes were about to burst. "Mom," he shouted while looking for the Huang family's child. Su's father, Uncle Dehuidejiang and others also suffered from liver and gallbladder rupture, and their hands and feet were weak. King Nao, his mother, Jinhai, Qing Yang, Xing, Xiaobao. After searching for a while like a headless rope, he learned from the seriously injured people that Huang Su ordered the killing of women and children accompanying the army in order to save food and reduce the burden. Huang Shenzi clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes almost burst out with fire. The remaining soldiers, some of whom were young, also hated Huang Su very much and gnashed their teeth at Huang Su. "Kill! Kill him! Kill Huang Su! Kill him! Kill him! Kill Huang Su!" The crowd was furious. Huang Shenzi immediately led the team and rushed forward, killing them all the way. Even if Huang Su had horses and carriages, they couldn't stop Huang Shenzi and others from running day and night to chase him and kill him. Huang Shenzi and his men rushed straight in front of him without saying much, and chopped off Huang Su's head with one knife. Huang Su was chopped off from his horse before he could say a word. His head was grunting on the ground, with his eyes wide open in shock. "I will never die with my eyes in peace." Huang Shenzi also killed all Huang Su's close men. When the remaining people saw this, they all knelt down and elected Huang Shenzi as the general. Huang Shenzi took advantage of the situation and gathered the team, leaving his close subordinates to count the number of people. He turned around and galloped away to join the team he had sent out to find the missing family members. Su's father and 4 others were among the searching team. The 4 people went all the way to the dense forest in the mountains to find it. The forest was full of fresh corpses of common people who had not yet cooled down. It was too horrible to look at. It was clear that not long ago, they were still alive, but for just a moment, they were separated by yin and yang when we saw each other again. Su's father and others stepped forward and looked through them one by one, shaking their hands for fear of seeing familiar faces in their family. "Qing Nao, Qing Lu, my mother. Jin Hai, my mother, Xiao. Red Sleeves. Xiaobao, Yaya, Qing Yang, Zinga." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 148. Xiaobao, Xiaobao. Xiaobao, Su Qingyu woke up suddenly, and the pain on her body made her grin and take a breath of air. It hurt all over my body, and I couldn't feel anything in my legs. Looking at the legs, I saw that one leg was tied with 2 boards, sandwiched between dusty cloth strips. Is this broken silk? Xiaobao, Su Qingnao looked at the thatched mud house covered with yellow mud, which was old and decayed. But she was happy, she wasn't dead. Alive. Su Qingyu had just finished being happy when she thought of her son and came back to her senses. Xiaobao, struggling to get off the ground. Where is her son? That little big thing has never left her since she gave birth to him. She is lying here alone. Where is Xiaobao? Hey, don't move, Don't waste my medicine. An old woman came in, holding a bowl of medicine. Seeing her struggling to get off the ground, she quickly put the medicine on the table aside and leaned over to hold her down. Hello, mother-in-law. Did you save me? Have you seen my son? The one who is with me is 1 year old and has a tiger-like head. Have you seen him? The woman was a bit old. She looked like she was in her 60s, her back was a bit hunched, her face had many wrinkles, and she looked a bit sinister and cold. Is that your son? Ah. Yes, yes. Did your mother-in-law see him? Where is my son now? The woman didn't reply to her, but just took the medicine on the table and said, drink it quickly, I've been up for a few hours. I'll drink it later. Mother-in-law, have you seen my son? Where is he? Please tell me quickly. I told you to drink the medicine first, the woman said in a cold voice. He also suddenly put the medicine bowl to Sukingyu's mouth. Sukingyu's conditioned reflex forced her head back. Seeing the woman staring at her coldly, she had no choice but to raise her hand and bring the medicine bowl to her mouth. The nose is filled with a strong herbal smell, very strong and strong. Seeing the other person staring, Sukingyu wrinkled her nose and drank the medicine. After a few gulps, she finished a large bowl of medicine, which made her want to vomit. Seeing the mother-in-law getting up and going out with the bowl, she became anxious and said, Mother-in-law, you haven't said where my son is yet. Lie down. Don't waste my medicine. The woman turned around and glared at her coldly. Seeing Sukingyu trying to get out of bed, she shouted, I'm not dead, I'm alive, and went out. Sukingyu was extremely anxious. She couldn't move this leg yet, but thinking about the woman's words that her son was still alive, Sukingyu felt half relieved. She was leaning against the earth wall in a daze. She must have been rescued this time, along with her son. What about Kixia, who was running behind her at that time? Were they also rescued together? And who else? Her mother, aunt, sister Yaya, younger brothers and sisters, Jinhai Hongxiu, where are they? Like her, still alive, right? At that time, there were soldiers pursuing them behind them. Those people seemed to be red-eyed and started to chop with their swords. A bunch of people were driven away and ran desperately towards the mountains. Everyone was a little panicked. Sukingneo just ran forward with Lu Xiaobao in her arms, and didn't notice Su's mother or the others. Mom, are you still alive? Sukingyu's eyes were dull and her eyes were wet and hot. You must live and nothing will happen to you. Otherwise, we might as well have stayed together in Fengting town. If anything happens to you, I will be a sinner. Sukingyu buried her head in her hands and shed tears. I vaguely heard Xiaobao's sharp howl, wow, mother. Mother. Xiaobao, Xiaobao. Mother. Before Sukingyu could get off the ground, Xiaobao heard the sound, opened the door, and stumbled in. Mother. Xiaobao, seeing that it was really him, Sukingyu hurriedly reached out to catch him, carried him to bed, and held him tightly in her arms. She was extremely happy and murmured, Xiaobao. Still alive. Very nice. Mother's little treasure. Lu Xiaobao really returned to his mother's arms this time, crying so hard that his nose and tears ran down his face. He twitched, opened his mouth wide and howled. The sound was so loud and crisp that it made the ears of people outside buzz. This kid has such a loud voice, an old man in his 60s or 70s said with emotion, stroking his sparse long beard. Loud. Hee. A sturdy man in his 30s stood next to him with a silly smile on his face. It's a bit loud, the woman who had just brought the medicine to Sukingyu said calmly. You haven't asked the other party. If she knows. The old man was quite worried. So what if I know? I saved the lives of her mother and son, and she had to sacrifice her life to repay it. What's more, I don't want her life. I just want her to marry my son and let her son take care of me until the end of his life, that's it. is it harder than risking one's life for one's life? The mother-in-law retorted. You, alas, always want others to be willing. Regardless of her unwillingness, can she still escape? Huh, I'm not looking down on her. A woman with a child wants to climb this big green mountain? Want to escape? Huh, I'm afraid she will fall into pieces. The old man shook his head and said in a helpless tone, I'm going back. Tell her carefully, maybe she will be willing to do it. It's not peaceful outside, maybe she'll be willing to stay here and live her life peacefully. The old lady didn't know whether she would be willing to stay here and live a stable life. All she knew was that several of the women she had brought in before finally tried to escape. However, she caught him again. He will remain in this valley until his death. She didn't want this woman. But then I thought about it, as long as I hold her son in my hand, are I afraid that she won't stay? How much can a child eat? She took care of it casually, and when she grew up, she was able to plow the fields for her son. After thinking about it, she looked back at her son standing next to her, with a doting look on her face. Kong-er, do you like this lady? I like it, I like it. Hee hee. The thick man clapped his hands and drooled happily. When the woman saw this, she helped him wipe away his saliva with a doting look on her face. If you like her, you should keep her, let her stay with you, become your wife, and let her give you a son, you know? This way, after your mother dies, someone will stay with you and take care of you. The man was anxious. Mom, where are you going? Don't leave. Kong-er wants to sleep with Mom tonight. Okay, Mom will sleep with Kong-er. But Kong-er has a wife, so from now on, let her sleep with you, okay? Okay, okay. The silly man named Kong-er clapped his hands happily. In the room, Sukingyu didn't know what was going to happen next. She looked at her son who was tired of crying and fell asleep in her arms, and felt a big stone in her heart fall to the ground. At the beginning, Lu Bachan didn't want a child because she was afraid that he would die, so she couldn't remarry because she wanted to have a child. She wanted a child herself, and she made an agreement with him. She had nothing to lose in this world. After Lu Xiaobao was born, her world became brighter. If something unexpected happens to Xiaobao this time, she will no longer have any ties to the world. Sukingyu looked down at Lu Xiaobao's young face, caressed it again and again, and carefully wiped away the tears hanging on his eyelashes. Seeing that he was still holding it tightly in his hand, the beef jerky she had just coaxed him to take out twitched but did not twitch. Instead, he pulled her tighter and tighter, and she wrinkled her little nose in dissatisfaction and snorted. Sukingnao smiled and let him go. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 149. Next, Sukingyu had Lu Xiaobao by her side, so she could rest in peace and recuperate. She asked the old woman and learned that her surname was Miao, that she was a medical woman and that she had basic medical skills. Since he was young, he has been treating patients and earning some money to support his family. I also asked her about it and learned that she only saved the mother and son, and that there were no other strangers in the village. I had no choice but to suppress my anxiety. Of course, when Mrs. Miao rescued her, she was afraid of getting into trouble and went to look around. There were some living people and some dead people nearby. Mrs. Miao didn't know whether there were people Sukingyu was looking for among them. I just didn't plan to tell Sukingyu. Mrs. Miao felt that since everyone had entered the valley, she was naturally cut off from things outside. It doesn't matter whether you have a family, in-laws or a husband. At that time, while Sukingnao was in a coma, she asked Sukingnao and her fool to pay homage to each other. Mother Miao naturally assumed that Sukingnao was her son. She will have to live in the valley for the rest of her life, and even her little son will have to stay and serve her silly son. Naturally, there is no need to know what is going on outside. It would be best if Sukingneo had a future and gave birth to a child for her fool. If she can't, then her son will break the pot for her fool and die in old age. Mrs. Miao regarded Sukingjeo as one of her own, so she naturally wanted to treat her with care. Next, he worked hard to prepare medicine for Sukingyu. He cooked food for her and brought her water to wash herself. Sukingneo didn't know why, she just thought that the mother-in-law was a good person who saved her mother and son's life. She felt grateful in her heart, but she didn't want to repay her. She said a lot of good things and how she would repay her in the future. Mrs. Miao only listened. I had no intention of letting her out of the valley in the first place. The meal Mrs. Miao brought was not that good, but it did include brown rice, vegetables, and soup, which was much better than the multi-grain porridge she had eaten with the army. Sukingneo was grateful in her heart. She was very grateful for Mrs. Miao's careful and thoughtful care. Although she felt that her attitude towards Xiaobao was a bit strange, she was indifferent and the food she served to Xiaobao was worse than hers, she felt a little weird in her heart. Her little baby has been loved by everyone around him since he was born. Everyone who meets him likes to tease him and touch his tender face. Lu Shenke loved his tightness even more. He walked from South Street to the store to play with him almost every day. And this woman could bring her water to wash her face and make medicine for her, but she turned a blind eye to such a cute child. Sukingyu felt a little strange, but she didn't take it to heart. There are also some people who think that children are noisy and they naturally dislike children. Therefore, Sukingneo just kept Lu Xiaobao by her side and asked him to play with her on the bed. Lu Xiaobao was a little scared when he didn't see her when he woke up. She has become a bit clingy to her now. The mother and son just stayed in the house to recover from their injuries and rarely went out. Until this day, a woman came to see her. "You look much better." The woman looked a little sad, looked at her a few times, and said calmly. Sukingyu smiled at her, "Well, much better. Are you from this village?" The woman nodded, "My father-in-law is the head of this village. He asked me to come and talk to you." "Thank you, father-in-law, for me. There are many good people in your village. Not only did they save our mother and son, but the village chief also asked you to come and talk to me because he was worried that I would be bored while recovering from illness." The woman glanced at her with a non-committal expression. His eyes shifted to the child who had stopped what he was doing since she came in. He stared at her child and smiled, "Is this your son?" Sukingyu also looked at Xiaobao and said with a smile, "Yes. My name is Xiaobao. He is over a year old and he only learned to speak last month. Xiaobao, I will call him aunt." Xiaobao only looked at the woman, then turned around and threw herself into Sukingyu's arms. "This kid." Sukingyu patted his little butt. "This kid is quite smart." Mrs. Sun's eyes softened when she looked at Xiaobao. Sukingyu nodded, smiled, and touched her son. Seeing that Xiaobao didn't call or force anyone. Looking at the woman, "What is your name?" "My surname is Shi. But everyone in this village has the surname Miao, and everyone also calls me sister-in-law Miao. I have a son and a daughter, one is 8 years old and the other is 6 years old." As she said this, she saw Lu Xiaobao tilting his head to look at her and smiled, "Next time, I will bring your brother and sister to play with you." Lu Xiaobao didn't know whether he understood or not, but he smiled at Aunt Chi, which made Aunt Chi laugh too. "This kid is still smiling at me." The atmosphere became much better after that. When the two women talked about their children, they seemed to have a lot of topics to talk about. "What does your man do, sister-in-law?" she asked Sukingyu. "We are farmers like you, but the child's father was sent to the battlefield." When the woman heard this, she paused and heard Sukingyu ask her, "Sister-in-law Shi, where is your man? Is your village big? Does it have a large population?" The woman said in a leisurely tone, "My man is dead. He followed the people out of the valley and never came back." "Well, is this in the valley?" Sukingneo never left the house or went out for a walk. She really didn't understand the place she was in. This is where. The woman looked at her with an incomprehensible look, containing emotions that Subiao couldn't understand. We are in the mountains of Jian. There is a piece of flat land between the two mountains. Our village is here. Our ancestors have lived here for generations, but there are always many tempting things outside. The men in the village have gone out, and many have not come back. I don't know if they are dead. Still don't want to come back. Sister-in-law Shi's eyes suddenly became dim. Well. Sukingneo's eyes turned cold when she saw her, feeling that she might have stepped on someone and hurt her foot. Suddenly I didn't know how to answer the call. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Then where do you get your food from?" "We grow hemp, draw the silk and spin it into clothes ourselves. We have fields in the valley. We grow some grain and vegetables to eat, and we are self-sufficient. When we don't have salt to eat, my father-in-law organizes people to go out and do a centralized purchase. A place like this is poor but not disturbed by external wars. Pretty good too." Sister-in-law Shi was surprised to see Sukingneo comforting her in turn. This woman probably doesn't know her own situation yet. Try asking her, "Do you know who saved you?" "Ah, are you talking about Mrs. Miao? She is a very nice person. Although she looks cold, she saved our mother and son and is our benefactor. She also treated me, boiled medicine for me, and served me. I don't know how to repay her. I heard that her husband is gone, and she is the only one left in the family to depend on. Even though she is not broken, she still wants to save my life. I really don't know how to thank her." Sister-in-law Shi looked at her blankly after hearing this. "When did Mrs. Miao become a good person?" "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 150. Mrs. Miao either stole or robbed, and brought back many women from outside, just to marry his idiot and give birth to his son. When she dies in the future, she can take care of her son, provide for her son to see him through his old age, and burn paper tributes to her old Miao family during the new year. Some of those women escaped and were captured, some were beaten to death, and some fell to death while climbing the mountain. Her father-in-law also wanted to take care of it, but when he saw her tears and runny nose, he knelt down and begged, saying that he could not close his eyes until he died, and no one would take care of his stupid son. Her father-in-law saw how pitiful her mother and son were, so he had no choice but to turn a blind eye. Mrs. Miao hasn't brought a woman back from outside for 2 or 3 years. Why did she bring a woman back from outside this time? And while she was unconscious, she escorted her to worship that idiot of hers. Her father-in-law likes Xiaobao and thinks he is smart. He was afraid that the woman in front of him would do something drastic after learning about it, so he asked her to enlighten her. She looked at the woman in front of her who regarded Mrs. Miao as her savior and said she was a good person. Seeing her mother and son playing happily on the bed, she suddenly sympathized with her. "I didn't know how to speak." Sukingneo signaled sister-in-law Shi with her eyes to tell her if she had anything to say. The village could take in her mother and son, so she had to do something on her own. She listened with a smile at first, then her face gradually stiffened, and finally, she was stunned. Just now, what did she hear? Sukingneo saw that her mouth was still opening and closing, and she was still talking about something, but she just didn't know what she was talking about. Her mind was buzzing. Did she hear it wrong just now? Mrs. Miao brought her back because she wanted her to marry her stupid son? He actually took her to worship while she was unconscious? Still want her to give birth to a grandchild? If you can't give birth, let Xiaobao stay and have him throw a basin? Sukingneo felt that her world had collapsed. The good guy she always thought was actually trying to buy and sell by force. Do you force others to do things they don't want to do without even asking them, and regardless of whether they have family or relatives, or whether they are willing or not. You said, Mrs. Miao has brought many people back over the years. Sukingyu interrupted her and asked with difficulty. Sister-in-law, she glanced at her with sympathy in her eyes and nodded, well, they bring people back almost every year. But no one can stay. I remember the woman who stayed the longest, for more than a year. She was pregnant. I tried to climb a mountain even though I was pregnant, but fell to my death. Pregnant. Yes. Although her son is stupid, he is still a man. Besides, Mrs. Miao is a doctor herself. A bowl of medicine can still make her son succeed. Sukingnao swallowed, she didn't understand medicine. Is there something in the food she eats that can make people lose their strength or control their sanity? She suddenly felt a little scared. He grabbed Xiaobao and held him tightly in his arms. Lu Xiaobao was enjoying himself when he saw his mother hugging him. He glanced at his mother blankly, then smiled, touched Sukingyu's face, and then lay obediently in Sukingyu's arms. Seeing this, sister-in-law, she sighed secretly, don't be afraid. She brought you back and tried her best to heal you. Your and Xiaobao's lives will not be in danger. But her fool is very strong. Sometimes he loses his temper. A few years ago, a woman was beaten to death by him. You, stay away. Seeing Sukingyu shaking in fear, she paused. She didn't want to say anything more, but she was afraid that she wouldn't know the situation. Then he said, if something happens to you, just shout loudly. Our village is full of good people, and there are many people who can't stand what Mrs. Miao does. However, you are like this now, with a child, there are also people outside now. Chaos. Half a month ago, men in our village went out to buy salt. I heard that people were hunting young men everywhere. The fields were deserted and no one was planting large areas of land. Our village had a good harvest, and everyone could still eat. Suddenly I couldn't speak anymore. Sure enough, I heard Sukingyu say, I have a husband, my children have a father. And I have a family. I want to go out of the valley to find my family. Upon hearing this, sister-in-law, she took a look outside the house and whispered, you should rest in peace and recuperate first. If Mrs. Miao knows that you want to leave, she will definitely monitor you. I don't know what she will do by then. Come on. His son is very strong, you can't beat him. If she hides your son again, are you going to leave him alone? Sukingyu shuddered. Cannot. No one can take Xiaobao away from her. Sukingyu hugged Xiaobao tightly, listening to him moaning in pain, and even calling her mother did not let him go. Sister-in-law, she sighed in her heart and stood up, I have to go back. From now on, when I have free time, I will come over to see you once a day. Otherwise, let me come to play with Xiaobao in my small mountain and valley. I will tell my father-in-law you, if anything happens, just shout. Thank you. Sukingnao thought that at this time, most people in the village were united. She could say these heart-wrenching words to an outsider, but she still had some conscience in her heart and did not want to help others. Sukingnao felt grateful and took out 2 taels of silver and gave it to her. I would like to ask you to come over here every day while I am recovering from my injuries, okay? Sukingyu's eyes were sincere. Sister-in-law, she looked at the 2 taels of silver that had been stuffed into her palm, quickly put it into her sleeve, and said, okay. After that, he went out. I'm back. Hey, I'm back. There's still life in the fields. Sukingnao heard Mrs. Miao greeting sister-in-law she in the yard. Her mind was very confused. She originally thought that Mrs. Miao was a good person and the savior of her mother and son, and she was thinking about how to repay her. I didn't expect that there was a purpose for saving her, and it was this purpose. She had to be careful, she had to be extremely careful. This woman is a doctor and knows how to use medicine. Never get in her way. She recovered from her injuries and was able to walk. She even went out to the valley to find her and Xiaobeo's relatives. Mrs. Miao opened the door and walked in holding the medicine. Drink the medicine. Su Qingnao hesitated for a moment, then drank the medicine under her gaze. Her injuries haven't healed yet, and this woman shouldn't be able to do anything yet. The woman took the medicine bowl and glanced at her legs. I will pick some herbs for you in the afternoon and change them for you. Thank you, mother-in-law. Although Su Qingjao felt stern in her heart, she still smiled at her and said thank you. He didn't want to arouse her suspicion, so he pretended to be nonchalant, still acting like he was a kind-hearted person before. Mrs. Miao was about to get up when her silly son walked in. Madam, madam. Drooling and grinning, he rushed to Su Qingyu's bed in a few steps. When Su Qingyu saw that his face was almost in front of her, she was startled and leaned back. Mrs. Miao was afraid that her son would scare people away, so she quickly grabbed the clothes around his neck and pulled him back. Mom will go to collect medicine in a while, and you will stay at home and look after the house, you know. Look after the house, look after the house. He. After the fool finished speaking, he saw Lu Xiaobeo staring at him and pointed at Xiaobeo happily. Play, play, he. Drooling. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 151. When Su Qingnao was recuperating from her injuries, she didn't know that people outside were going crazy looking for her. When Dehu and Dejiang met again in Renzhou City, they found that there was still no new information. The two looked frustrated. This means they didn't come looking for her. Su Dehu's heart sank. He would rather believe that Su Qingyu was delayed because of something rather than think about other situations. She must still be alive. They searched the dense forest and the entire mountain top that day, but found nothing, and they did not come to Renzhou City. Brother Dehuo, come back. The boss promised us that he would send us a message as soon as there is news. Yes, Su Dehuo's voice was low. The two of them walked out of Renzhou City with heavy steps. Renzhou City once again returned to the hands of Jiangxi observer Yang Bai, and there were already some people on the streets. Although it is still not as prosperous as it was in the past, the situation has improved a lot because Yang Bai, the king of the land, is willing to consolidate and improve it. The cloth shop owner also reopened the door. He was still deeply impressed by the woman who came to his store that day and bought all the solace from him. 6. Besides, I also took their money. It's just a message, it's nothing difficult to do, it's just something that comes easily. In troubled times, it is not easy for everyone, and maybe there is a way out for ourselves. The boss sent Su Tuesday out with a sincere look. The two of them traveled all night, riding horses all the way away from the area where the incident occurred that day without stopping. By the morning of the next day, they arrived at the camp where the large army was stationed. How's it going? Did you find it? Su's father, Su's mother, and others hurriedly gathered around. Su Dehu shook his head in frustration. Whenever he thought about something unexpected happening to Su Qingyu, his heart felt like a cat scratching his head. How difficult is it for a woman to raise a child? How could I not find it? How could I not find my son? Mother Su suddenly felt weak and was about to collapse to the ground. A young man next to her quickly helped her. Mom. Su's mother fell into his arms. Ching Song, your two sisters, your nieces and nephews, they are still so young. They are two women raising two children. What should I do, my son? When a large family escaped from Fenting town, everyone was here except Su Qingyu, Xiaobeo, Su Qingliu, and Yaya. Except for Kixia, who was found on the third day. Su's mother and aunt were rescued on the same day. Fortunately, they met Maku, the commander of the Hunan Mabu led an army who was passing through Jiangxi with his men, and rescued her family. Later, Su's father and others came looking for him, and the family waited at Su Qingsong's temporary camp. During this period, Huang Shenzi killed Huang Su and was elected as the new general. Huang Shenzi organized the remaining troops. On the one hand, he sent troops to search for the people who were being hunted nearby, and on the other hand, he negotiated with Yang Bai, the Jiangxi observation envoy who was pursuing behind him. Because Huang Shenzi had no intention of seizing Jiangxi, he only wanted to lead a large force across the border into Fujian. And Huang Su was also dead, so Yang Bai naturally didn't want to kill them all. Now that there are many heroes and gallantry, who knows which one is the real dragon? To be kind to others is to be kind to yourself. Besides, they don't want to seize his territory, so letting him go and letting the other party owe him a favor is a worthwhile business. So, Yang Bai waved his hand and led the team away. Before leaving, I had a good time with Ma Gu, the commander of the Hunan Horse Infantry Army, and called me brother and sister. After the two brothers were good, they reluctantly left. That horse is just a carpenter. I heard that the wooden birds he makes can fly, and people who come to him to build furniture have to queue up. Unexpectedly, he turned around and joined the army, and he did a great job. After being appreciated by the coach, he was promoted to a general within 1 year. Not long after this, his boss fled back to Hunan with more than 7,000 remnant soldiers, deceived Zhang Xuan, the general guarding Longhui Pass, and captured Hunan easily. As someone close to him, Ma Chun was promoted to the commander of the horse and infantry forces. From Yang Bai's point of view, it is not certain who will fall into the hands of Hunan in the future. It is his purpose as a person to make good friends with others and keep a straight line. Well, you still have to be kind to others. Otherwise, Hunan is on his left, Fujian is on his right, and he is in the middle. Tisk tisk, you still have to be kind to others. Yang Bai led his troops away. In the end, Huang Shenzi wanted to stay behind to look for the surviving people, while Ma Gu, a subordinate he was optimistic about, met his family members on the road after being away from home for a few years. He was very happy when he heard that 2 of them were missing. Crying and shouting that he wanted to stay to find his 2 sisters and nephew. What can be done with the tenon? Find it? Ma Kui himself also came from a poor family. He was sent to a carpenter's house as an apprentice since he was a child, and he only received food but no wages. Kahaha worked as an apprentice for 7 or 8 years. He didn't even have enough to eat, he was ordered around by servants, he had to be beaten and scolded by his master and his wife, and he couldn't even go home. Seeing the Su family reunited at this moment, I am happy for Su Qingsong. There are still a few missing in this question. Look for it? Must find. He just likes to see other people reunited. Then the procession stopped. So both parties sent a large number of people to inspect the mountains and forests where the accident occurred that day, inch by inch. When they saw the big trees, they sent people to rush up to take a look. I'm afraid people are hiding up there. After half a month of searching, the ground was almost turned over and nothing was found. When I asked in Renzhou City, there were no women or children who came to inquire about the situation. After searching for more than half a month, Su Qingsong saw that many of his colleagues were complaining. As Master Ma's personal soldier, although he had always gained his trust, it would not delay his schedule too much. Just as he was in a hurry, Su's father spoke, "Mother, you follow Song to Hunan first. I'll stay in Renzhou City to wait for Qing Nao and Qing Lu." Su's mother was anxious, his father, "I will stay too." When the twins heard this, they also expressed their intention to stay. The 2 sisters and Xiaobeoyaya were gone. They couldn't sleep well at night, and they shed tears when they thought of them. Seeing that the Su family was fighting over who should stay and who should go, Su Dehu said, "Uncle and aunt, You all should follow Brother Ching Song to Hunan. It's not peaceful now. You stay here. If something happens, Ching Lao, I'll blame myself if I find out. I'll stay and look for them, and I'll write to you. Sue's father disagreed. Dahuo, how can my young lady King Liu let you? Uncle, that's it. I want to stay and look for her. You are not as healthy as me. I know some moves now. I don't have big goals alone, so it's just right to stay. In the end, Father Su and Mother Su agreed. Su Ching Song patted his shoulder gratefully. If possible, he would also like to stay and find his two sisters in person. However, he was just a small soldier at the beginning, but he was rescued by Master Ma many times. Now he has taken him as a personal soldier, and he also has great trust in him. Master Ma needs him now. Moreover, if he has no identity, it will only be more difficult for his parents, brothers, and sisters. The Su family had an agreement, but the Zhou family was in trouble. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 152. It stands to reason that everyone comes out together, shares will and woe along the way, and promises to be together in life and death. Read. However, when Qixia was hunted down, she was rescued by one of Huang Shenzi's soldiers. The two of them hid in the cave for a night. Qixia's reputation was gone and she had to marry him. But the new son-in-law wants to do big things with Huang Shenzi, so should they stay with their daughter and son-in-law, or should they stay with their younger brothers, sisters, and nephews? Aunt Zhou looked here and there, in a dilemma. It would be nice if the son-in-law knew everything about it, but mainly, this future son-in-law hasn't married Qixia yet. Next, they have to arrange their marriage. Moreover, no one knows what kind of character the son-in-law is. Should Qixia be allowed to follow him to Fujian alone? Finally, the whole family was divided into two groups. One group followed Su Ching Song along the Ganjiang River to Chudi. One group followed Huang Shenzi through Jiangzi and entered Fujian. Before leaving, Aunt Zhou held the hands of her younger brother and his sister-in-law and said, "If Qing Lu has faith, please tell us, poor child." Mother Su also held her hand and cried uncontrollably. Su's father held the hands of his uncle and aunt and confessed repeatedly, "If that person is not good, bring Qixia to find us. Write to us when the time comes, and I will ask Qing Song to pick you up." Why? Big Tiger. Uncle, aunt, don't worry, I will send you messages often. The whole family was separated for a while. But Su Qingyu knew nothing about all this. Many times, Su Dehu found the mountains near the valley where she was. The mountains were high and densely forested. He never thought that there was a valley between the two mountains, where a group of people living in seclusion had lived for generations. And Su Qingyu was there. After changing the medicine several times on her legs, she was able to get off the ground and walk 2 steps, but if she walked any more, it would hurt. Firstly, she didn't want to become a cripple, and secondly, she didn't want Mrs. Meow to notice the clues, so she had no choice but to continue lying on the bed. Although she wanted to recover from her injuries quickly, she went out to find Su's mother and others, but she didn't want Mrs. Meow to see that she was getting better. Only when she was lying on the bed would Mrs. Meow relax her vigilance towards her, so that she could get some news from sister-in-law Shi. Sister-in-law Shi got her money, but she promised that she would take time to come and see her every day. Sometimes she just couldn't get away, so she would ask her son and daughter to come over. The two mountain children are very simple and have never been out of the mountains since they were born. They like to listen to Su Qingneo and hear stories outside the mountains. I come here almost every day, listen to the stories, and then help take care of Xiaobao. With the hills and valleys around, Su Qingneo was relieved that Xiaobao would follow them to the village. Sometimes Xiaobao comes back covered in mud from playing, like a dirty little monkey, which makes Su Qingneo dumbfounded. It can already be seen that Xiaobao has a lively temperament. I couldn't see Sukingyu before, and I had been stuck with her for a few days, but I still preferred to run outside. When Sukingyu lay in the house every day, she could hear him laughing outside the yard, hear him running, and hear him imitating others. Sukingyu felt that if Mrs. Miao didn't have such thoughts, she might be able to stay in this valley longer. When the time comes to find Father Su, Mother Su, and others, maybe we can take them here to live a secluded life. But since she learned about Mrs. Miao's thoughts, she just wanted to leave as soon as possible. These days, Mrs. Miao's idiot often pokes her head at the door, drooling at her, trying to get in. Sukingyu worries about it every day. Fortunately, Mrs. Miao might have told him not to come in and disturb her recovery. This idiot actually listened to his mother's words and didn't come in. He just kept grinning at her at the door every day. He was drooling and kept shouting, "Madam, madam." It gave Sukingyu goosebumps all over her body. Every night she didn't dare to sleep properly, for fear that Mrs. Miao would come in with her idiot and force her to take advantage of her. Sukingyu clenched her fists. She wanted to leave here as soon as possible. Just how to avoid Mrs. Miao's surveillance and get out of the valley under her nose. Mother, mother, flower. Xiaobao held up a small yellow flower, held onto the doorframe, and strenuously stepped in. When he crossed the threshold, he flew towards her. Sukingyu was very happy. Wow, what a beautiful flower. Is this little treasure for mother? Thank you for the baby. She leaned over and licked his little face, which made Xiaobao happy. She also held Sukingyu's face and licked him. Playing the cheek-to-cheek game that both mother and son love. Xiaoshan and Xiaogu, the brother and sister who were following Xiaobao, looked at this with envy at the door. Sukingyu saw it and hurriedly called them over. Little mountains and valleys, come, do you want to listen to a story? Yes. Upon hearing this, the little brother and sister hurriedly ran in. Sukingyu chose a few stories that the children liked to hear and told them. The two children and even Xiaobao listened with gusto. Now it's your turn. You see, my aunt has never been to your village. She doesn't know what the situation is like in your village. Are you willing to tell me? I'm willing. Seeing that she wanted to hear it, the two children rushed over each other and introduced her to her word by word. Is there only one road out of the village? Yes. That road is in a cave and cannot be found by outsiders. I heard my mother say that children should not go there, as there will be wild beasts that will eat the children. Many adults went in and never came back. My father never came back. Sukingyu glanced at the two children and touched their heads. Okay, we won't go over, and we won't let the wild beasts eat us. The two children nodded vigorously. Well, Xiaobao is still young, and wild beasts like to eat such small children. Okay. None of us are going. Seeing that both children breathed a sigh of relief, he asked again, then do all the people in your village go to Granny Meow for medical treatment when they are sick? Yes. Granny Meow knows how to collect medicine. I heard from my grandfather that Meow Fool's father was a doctor. He used to make money by treating patients, but he died many years ago. Granny Meow can't treat serious illnesses, but minor illnesses can be cured in the village. People come to see her. She knows how to collect herbs, and people in the village buy them from her when they are sick. Oh, so powerful. Xiaogu nodded, but Xiaoshan hesitated to speak. What happened to Xiaoshan? Xiaoshan raised his head and looked at her. Many people say that Granny Meow is not a good person. But there is no other doctor in the village, and everyone dare not say anything about her to her face. Before you came, my mother wouldn't let my sister and I come here. After hearing this, Sukingyu touched his head and said, that's it? Then Auntie knows. To thank you for playing with Xiaobao, can Auntie tell you another nice story? Good. Next, Sukingyu spent several days recovering from her injuries. She can already throw away the crutch and walk, but she still put the crutch on the bedside. Every day she would walk in the yard with a cane. Every time when she wanted to leave the hospital, Mrs. Meow would quietly appear behind her. "Don't waste my medicine. There are mountains outside, what's there to see?" The tone was sinister. Sukingyu smiled and said, "It's too boring in the house, let's go out for a walk." Mrs. Meow stared at her while drying the herbs on the mat. And her silly son followed her not far away, drooling at her, shouting, "Madam, madam."